All right, thanks. So anyone is welcome to stay, but you guys are welcome to take your party elsewhere. Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. Are you guys here for Vernon Lane? Everyone is? Okay, so we can do that next. So we are going to skip ahead to that be in, so we'll actually do Commissioner Knapp's Public Safety Committee report. The item on that agenda is Vernon Street. And I understand that we have received several requests for speed humps on that street. So come on up and state your name and address for the record up at the podium. Yeah. Yeah. I'll do it.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Bala. I live at 605 Vernon Street.
I'm Felice Benson Dixon, live at 606 Vernon Street.
I'm Eric Aberzies, and this is my partner Savannah Steigen, and we live at 609 Vernon Street.
So basically, we came here today just to discuss, I'm sure I was here maybe about a year or so ago, just discussing the same things in reference to the speed and the traffic that comes through our community. And I just reached out to a couple of neighbors, and they were all on the same page just to hear what they had to say in reference to that. I know I had said something before. The community tried to do certain things around upon ourselves, just in general, but to have other people realize that this is not just the issue with just one specific person means a lot. So we're here to.
Yeah, so I mean, we had, you know, an email thread going. I think we have a lot of salient points. I don't know if I should lay them out, but yeah, so our street is, we have bus stops on either end of the street. Our street has no sidewalks, and it's all street parking. It's really hard to see pedestrians, and most of the foot traffic that we get is like kids and teenagers. We also have Sapovitz Park, like right around the corner from us. So basically that whole street is mostly kids going to the park, going to the bus stops, getting off the bus, and people rip through our section of the street all the time. It's also sort of an intersection with Wallingford. So people are coming off doing 45 miles an hour and just continue that same pattern on our street. So I think there's a pretty good case for having something like a speed control device.
Yeah, I believe, and I think part of the issue is that it's kind of, we're in between Baltimore Pike and Wallingford Avenue, and a lot of people don't want to take the extra minute to go all the way down to Manchester, which is, I think, 35 miles per hour. So they do 40 miles per hour down our street as a cut through, and especially like a lot of larger construction trucks, delivery vans, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I have a 5-year-old and I won't let him on our street, you know, even with supervision, because I'm afraid if someone comes around the corner, they could hit him. I won't let him get out of the car on the street side, even with me there. It's, you know, he can't ride his bike. It's scary.
You're on the 600 block. What are some, I'm looking at a map right
Yeah.
now. What are the sort of cross streets right where you are with Sapovitz?
So we're between Wallingford Avenue and Leaper Street. That's our block.
block.
Yeah, the first block, which I think is part of the problem. People, there's not a stop sign on Wallingford Ave, so people kind of whip around. People also skip the stop sign that's on our street crossing over Wallingford Ave. Our car was actually hit a couple of years ago by someone that did exactly that.
Yeah, and you know, if you go up our street a little bit to the other parts of Vernon Street, you can see like a lot of our neighbors up there have, you know, the kids with the flag that says like, you know, slow down, but we can't do that because we have street parking. So you know, yeah.
And we're the only block, I believe, on Vernon that doesn't have sidewalks. There's a sidewalk in front of my house and the house next to me, but then it ends. So there's no alternate route for people to take other than literally walking down the middle of the street, including children.
Dave, the temporary humps, are they anywhere in the township right now? Are they in storage?
So Chief did a traffic study there, and I think the problem with a lot of these streets is people think that people are speeding and they're actually not. And that's sort of what that has shown. But I also understand, let me just say that first, because there are a lot of residents all over the township that would like traffic calming, and we'd end up with stop signs at like every corner if, you know, we sort of did. So there are metrics that we have to go through.
Sure.
That being said, I think streets that are a cut through get special consideration. And so you just for safety reasons, you know, and so I think that what I'd like to do as a next step there is, if all of the residents or a vast majority of them on the road are in favor of that, then I think that's something that the board would want to know. Because we do then still have to run everything through our, you know, traffic calming policies and all that. But I think that would be helpful to know. So I think that's probably the next step. It sounds like you have, you know, a good following here. And then so Dave, we can coordinate on that. You know, Commissioner Knapp's not here today. And so he's usually the one that would take the lead on something like this, but we hear you, we understand. I do agree that it's a cut through and it has some special situations there. So despite the traffic study showing that people aren't necessarily going as fast as you think they are, it still could probably be a safety concern given the special circumstances
And
there.
also consider, I guess, the timing as well. Sapovitz has basketball leagues that go on where people from out of town are coming in. So the summertime may be a lot more activity going on, more or less than it is now to take a study and do something. I mean,
No, I understand that. So I think that's probably the best next step. So I guess we can coordinate on how we want to do that. So
Can we,
Yeah, go
and just in a broader, I agree with everything you just said, Kate, by the way. Because I see this in my ward all the time. I have written, as Dave knows, very long emails to our residents about our whole process. And I want to commend Chief and the entire traffic squad, really, and all the process that we have, because it is a 3-step process. It's really involved. There's a lot of data. That said, what I always say to residents is, if you get, as you said, the majority, I think we should probably as a board consider, like we do with the lights, what that really entails. Are we saying you know, on a particular block, is it 50% plus one? Are we saying 2/3? Are we saying, I think we should give some direction to the residents to say, because as Robert has seen with Putnam, there are some people that really want speed humps or traffic mitigation or other things. And then there were some that were really against it. And yeah, streetlights, same thing. So I think it's just important that we give solid direction to the residents here for the board to consider. It should be, you know, whatever that majority of the residents are. I have a situation right now where the traffic mitigation the data was overwhelmingly clear. The perception does not meet the reality. The data says there's no speeding. I want to give those residents that same chance to say, okay, well, we've gathered together and we have the requisite number of signatures or approval from the community, and we just add that to our process. Does that make sense?
No, and it's also, unfortunately, there's probably going to be some subjectivity to all of it, because I think, like we said, there's always going to be residents every road that, like my neighborhood is a good example. It feels like people are going faster than they are. It's not a cut through. And if we put stop signs and speed humps everywhere where people want them, people would never get anywhere. So we just need to make sure we're,
It's a majority. Yeah.
25 might be- yeah, I mean, I can-
And did we send letters out?
well, we,
I mean.
well, and we rarely, we had sort of a deadlock on us, what was that, a stop sign somewhere? Or the one way, it was a one way over in the third ward. But other than that, we typically get maybe one or two oppositions and a lot of support, or the other way around, like there seems to be a consensus. So I hear you. Let's move forward. Let's think about that more long-term, and then we'll move forward with the survey here like we normally do.
We were just saying too, like, I think the speed limit is 25, if not a speed hump, perhaps maybe even lowering the speed limit, because yes.
I don't
people
think
might not-
Chief can talk to that. I don't
Yeah.
think we can.
They might not be going, to- maybe. they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, is that
Mhm.
crazy? Oh my God.
Yeah, and so we did actually have the problem where there were really old speed signs around the township that
Yeah.
said something different, and they're not enforceable. And I think they've since
Yeah.
been removed because they were in very odd
I
spots.
mean,
so.
I think the problem may be, yes, people are doing 25, but that's probably too fast
Mhm.
for our street, given the foot traffic, the children, park,
Mhm.
the street parking.
No, understood.
So.
Okay, well, we'll
Thank you
we'll
so
work on that.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
So it sounds like we need to collect signatures or something?
David, we'll work on getting out a survey. You guys don't have to do that. And so we'll look at the block where it would make sense to maybe put the speed humps if they were put in, and then we'll usually expand that a little bit and make sure we get, like, capture all the responses in the appropriate
But
area.
I think it's a good
Mhm.
idea.
Traffic temps.
I always think
Yeah,
you should
right.
talk to neighbors. So you have a great
Well,
community there.
yeah.
I would just say, hey, a survey,
Assuming the majority.
you know, make sure you respond. Great. Okay.
Okay, well, same as you're welcome to stay, but also welcome to go.
Mhm.
I don't think
Okay.
she's not.
I'll just.
For the record, though, I think even looking at the policy longer term, I think a majority is probably too small of a threshold to cover. I think it needs to be significantly more than that, just because people will move in and out and it'll change. So, I mean, just so it's on the record, I would say that if we do have something that says majority, I think we should probably take a look at that policy and consider upping that amount.
I
a
don't,
lot.
Dave can send you our traffic calming. There is a policy and a matrix and stuff, so I'm not sure exactly what it says, but we can.
Yeah, I mean, I this is, yeah, okay.
There is some subjectivity, like you said.
Mhm. All right, so let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the November 10th and November 17th meetings. I took a look and did not have any material changes. I don't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to bring up. All right, so then I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Commissioners for November 10th. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Oh, one abstention. Robert was recovering, and that motion carries 5-0. I will make a motion to approve the Board of Commissioners in Nether Providence Township minutes from the November 17th meeting.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Robert, were you? Okay. And so that motion carries 5-0. All right, we'll move on to appointments to boards and commissions. We have an EAC, a resident who's been attending meetings and is interested in being an ad hoc member. So we generally, there is not a position open, but welcome people who are interested in being ad hoc members. Do we need to formally reappoint? Okay. And I make a separate motion for each person. Is that how we do that? Okay. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So the other people were not, are we appointing Corey Salmon? Okay, but I need to do a separate one for each.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I will make a motion to appoint Noel Coker
Oh, yeah, you're right.
as a EAC
read
ad
that.
hoc member. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 6-0. So for the zoning hearing board, Chris Davis has resigned as our solicitor, and our current zoning hearing board member, Adam Fernandez, is asking the zoning hearing board to be appointed as a solicitor. That is sort of up to them in their discretion. And so it is very likely that a spot will open up on the zoning hearing board. So be considering if you have anyone who you think might be interested in that position. So that's just an informational item. And then we have the CDCA, as everyone might know, Christine Ruther, who's currently a county council person, has been our representative at the CDCA for several years now. She is stretched pretty thin and is asking to not renew her term. Corey Salmon, who is a municipal civil engineer and his specialty is wastewater and stormwater management, has expressed interest. It seems he has the support of Christine Ruther and has great background here. So we're making a motion for that. Okay. So I would make a motion to appoint Corey Salmon to the as the CDCA representative for Nether Providence.
Second. Any
comments or questions?
He's awesome. It's going to be a great appointment.
And he has an appropriate last name for any sort of.
He does.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Solicitor Scott, do we have anything that's not otherwise in the agenda? All right. And Charles, anything for you that is not in the agenda? Looks like it maybe.
Well, the only thing I did want to mention was we've been working with Bob Lynn's office on the Public Works Garage reconstruction. One of the things I
Dave,
wanted
can you
to,
shut that door? It's really hard to hear.
one of the things I just wanted to run by the board would be, we had heard some issues with the public recycling drop off, in that residents are dropping off recyclables and it's kind of intermingling with the public works operations. So as part of this project, we just kind of took a quick look at the possibility of creating a separate recycling drop-off driveway. So the residents would come in off of Brookhaven Road in front of the dump, in front of the bins, and then completely be separated from the public works operations.
Yeah.
So with the board's kind of approval, so to speak, I'm gonna kind of put that into the bid as an alternate to the public works process, so you at least know what it would cost to do that. So that's all I have.
So that would just be updating the bid to allow for the design, like the design or the extra
Some site
cost for that.
construction,
Okay.
yes.
And this would be like west of the current entrance, like farther down Brookhaven.
Dave has a concept plan that we had put together.
So do we need a motion for that?
I don't think so, but Bob can.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that makes sense.
And there's not a problem right now with, you said, I couldn't hear at the very beginning. Is there an issue with people coming now while you're starting to think about?
Well, there's the big issue is that there's residents coming and dropping off, yard waste and those kind of, whatever else they're collecting over there. At the same time as the public works guys are working in the yard. So, and I've been there personally where you see, somebody with dumping a load of tree limbs while the guy's loading a truck and it's literally like behind the backhoe as he's doing that work. And it creates an unsafe condition. The other thing this will also accomplish is the sight distance coming out of the driveway is a little marginal. By moving it where we're proposing it, it's going to improve the safety as well. Oh, you can look at it later, but it's just.
Yeah, and we just need to, I can't picture exactly where you're talking about, but I know there's that neighborhood
In-
back there. We just gotta
Basically,
make
it'll be like a loop. The
Okay.
existing driveway will be in, and then you'll make like a sharp left turn in front of the bins,
sure. Mhm.
and then you'll come out next to the salt shed.
Is it gonna be close to a house down there? That's my only.
No,
no,
it's going to be
okay.
between the existing driveway and the salt shed. It shouldn't bother anybody.
Do we need approval from the state for another opening?
We'll need a PennDOT permit for that. But I don't think it'll be a problem because we're actually improving the site
Safety.
distance.
Okay.
Is there anything we need to do now?
I'm
Since-
sorry.
Is there anything that we need to do now, considering that there is a bit of a safety issue at the moment? It sounds like, I don't want to make
There's
anyone.
a lot of things we should do at Public
Right,
Works.
yeah.
It's one of those things, it's existed for a long time.
Yeah.
And
All
it's,
right.
while we're doing this work, we have an opportunity. We're going to have a site contractor in there anyway. So
Good
it's an
enough.
opportunity to kind of piggyback on that to get this done.
All right, is the chief coming back in? I wanted. Okay, chief, since the only thing on the public safety committee report was the Vernon Street speed humps. I also wanted to, within that public safety, I was hoping you might just give a brief update on the incident at the schools today.
As we all know, it's a busy day today. What I can tell you is that 10:49 this morning, the police department was called to Strathaven High School, located on Providence Road for a possible student with a gun in the backpack. All the officers today, we had 2 officers working the street, myself, traffic safety, the narcotics officer, and the detectives. We had 6 guys working today. We were accompanied by the Swarthmore Police, Upper Providence, Media Borough as well, and Springfield Township. We responded to the high school. Student was identified, and following a brief search of the building, we were able to locate his backpack in a classroom. Inside the backpack, we located a replica handgun, which is a plastic toy handgun. It was an airsoft gun designed to shoot rubber pellets. So it was not an actual firearm, it was a replica handgun. Police continued to search the building and located the student. A short time later, the student was taken into custody, and following an assessment with school officials, the building was deemed to be safe. School officials then lifted the lockdown. Obviously, we're not going to name the student because he's juvenile, but he's being dealt with in the juvenile court system. We reached out to juvenile court, and appropriate charges will be filed against the student.
Thanks for the update, chief, and thank you guys always for being there for us.
Welcome.
All right, so we can move on to the government relations report with Commissioner Cooper.
Thank you, President McKenzie. Just one brief update on my report. So at Pico Tree Work, Township does not have any updates other than that the Park Ridge Drive project will begin this month per Pico. And that's all I have. Back to you.
Okay, thanks. And the Partridge Drive, they sent out notices to the residents. I just got mine a day or 2 ago, and that is a favored project in the area, so that is positive. Yeah.
No, we're gonna discuss Henry Lane.
Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. Just wanted to make sure we weren't ignoring you. All right, sorry. They knew what they were doing. I didn't.
On to infrastructure and public works with.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And 3 relatively quick items here. The first is public right-of-way access for utilities ordinance consideration. Our solicitor, Bob Scott, has drafted an ordinance that amends chapter 221 of our code regarding street and public right-of-way excavation. He has also included information about the need for the permit to include an evaluation, strike that, of drainage. And Bob, is there anything?
Yeah, I had a draft I had hoped to distribute to you tonight, but Mr. Grady had some suggestions which were worth incorporating, and I'm in the process of doing that.
Okay,
So,
I guess we'll chat about that
Yeah,
sometime
next
at one
time.
of our upcoming meetings. And thanks to both of you for your help. If there's no comments or questions on that, I'll keep moving forward. The next item here is a motion to approve the H2O grant resolution. I understand, I guess here Max or Matt probably knows more about this than I do. So anyway, but anyway, the H2O grant covers projects from storm sewers or sanitary sewers for projects over $500,000. There's a 50% match. The Henry Lane project has an estimated cost of $649,000. ARPA funds could be used for this, which would require the removing of the draft projects of Hemlock Road and Canterbury Road water quality projects. The Henry Lane project would not bring MS4 credits, and the Hendricks and Canterbury projects would. And like I said, if Max or Matt want to chime in on that, please feel free to.
Yeah, so I've had a series of conversations with Matt, Dave, as well as Charles about this. The kind of genesis of the current discussion was when we were introduced to these specific grant resolutions. There's two that we're discussing today, items 2B and 2C on our agenda. So essentially, the H2O grant resolution is for a large kind of water project, and item 2C, the small water and sewer grant resolution, is for a smaller water project. And we had originally been, over the last several years, trying to put money aside to improve some kind of flooding issues along Palmer's and Briarwood. And we've gotten some state funding, and we had kind of penciled in some additional ARPA funding to kind of, complete those projects. And, over the last several months, really longer than that, there's been, a concern about issues at Henry Lane and flooding in people's yards there. A little bit of a different issue than at Palmer's and Briarwood, where some of the water is getting into people's basements, but there is still an extensive amount of flooding at Henry Lane into people's yards, as I understand it. And so when we saw these kind of grant opportunities, I had some discussions with Charles, Dave, and Matt to see whether or not the kind of items that we had penciled in to the ARPA kind of funding still made sense, or if these were kind of like a unique opportunity to do some kind of larger term, project. A couple of things to consider. The projects that we had originally penciled in were for the kind of state MS4 requirements. And in talking to Dave and kind of reviewing recent grant cycles, there's recurring yearly opportunities to get grant funding for the MS4 cycles, at least by kind of recent history. And when you look at these two grant opportunities, the H2O grant resolution and the small water and sewer grant resolutions, these are far less commonly offered grant opportunities specifically for stormwater mitigation. We're also at a unique kind of financial opportunity at the township with this significant windfall of ARPA funds, which I don't think is something that's going to, happen to us often. And so there's this kind of marriage of financial opportunity kind of amplified by, further financial opportunities, these rarely offered grant resolutions. And so we were kind of talking creatively about whether or not it would make sense to redirect some of the money that we had penciled into MS4 credits and instead take a larger bite out of these kind of stormwater flooding issues. Yeah,
That was very good. And to Audra, since you're here, I'll speak. I've lost my voice. I'll speak the best I can. So we had our engineer, Charles Catania, draw up a project for a Henry Lane storm sewer system. And, initially we thought maybe we'd have to do it in phases and bid it out in phases because of the cost. But with these grant opportunities, it seemed to be, I don't want to say once in a lifetime opportunity, but something
it is. It's a once in a generation.
something that doesn't come up a lot. There may be the possibility here to do the whole Henry Lane system through one grant opportunity if we were a successful recipient. So I appreciate Max and Dave and Charles meeting to kind of creatively come up with this way to get these storm water issues addressed in the township, through some use of potentially ARPA money, and if we're successful recipients on the grants. And then, as Max said, we can always come back in future years, since it seems like these MS4 grants are recurring on a yearly basis, and apply for those projects again. And, my thinking is, since the stormwater is really affecting residents directly, again, it's a good opportunity to try to get them some relief now. Whereas I think with the MS4, I don't know if it's as tangible, the benefit to the specific resident.
It's not necessarily tangible, but it is required. I know
Sure.
it's an unfunded mandate. So I don't necessarily have a problem applying for these grants, but 50% match is not a very good deal. We don't do many that are that high. So I think we'll have to really think about whether
Yeah.
that's a good use of funds, especially since I am really empathetic to everyone in the township that has water problems, but a lot of people have basement water problems. So I want to make sure that we're using the money, the ARPA money is, like you said, a once in a lifetime, and a 50% match is not great, but there's no harm in applying,
Yeah.
seeing where we go.
Absolutely. So I asked Dave to kind of pull up, this is the document that we reviewed earlier today with Matt. At least one page of it shows what we had originally kind of penciled in to be spent for our ARPA money. So you can kind of get an idea for that. I think that's, and then this is kind of what we had discussed, possibly changing it to. An additional point to be made here. The kind of alteration from MS4 funding to the funding of these stormwater projects would also free up a little bit of extra money to be used as a cushion for the garage project, because there were concerns about the possibility of cost overruns for that. And so it kind of shores up the financing for that project as well. So the kind of, potential alterations to be made would help, kind of a couple different projects. So this was what was originally kind of discussed several months ago when we had our ARPA meeting. And now, so it's the Canterbury and Hemlock project. We've already kind of made progress on Pine Ridge. Now, in talking to Charles about this, because your point's very well made, Kate, about the kind of state requirement for MS4 credits, I was trying to gauge with Charles the other kind of communities in the region, certainly the ones that he represents or that he's aware of. Kind of what progress have they made on MS4 projects? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we lagging? Are we kind of middle of the pack as far as the progress we've made on this mandate? And it sounds like we're kind of right in the middle of the pack, if I remember the conversation we had. We're doing better than most. Right. So we're already, kind of ahead of the
That's what
curve.
we have been marching along with.
Yeah,
it.
when do
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
when do we have to have those done by? I mean, that I
The decision
always
tonight.
remember. No, sorry. The MS4, I know that there's a, it's 2025.
It's from when we got the permit, right? It's from when we got the permit, which may have been in 20, wasn't it?
I mean, I had 2025 in my head for whatever reason, but I think maybe that's just because it's 5 years in 2025. I think that if part of this is on the premise, and I think it's a good one in that we've been marching along because we have, Grantmaster Flash down there, getting grants out the wazoo. I think that's great, but we have a deadline for that. And I know that this is a once in a lifetime, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we don't do that and then, oops, we didn't get those other grants as we needed to go. And that's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it sounds like tonight the ask is to apply, and I don't necessarily have an issue applying. I just, a 50% match is really not a super great deal, although grants don't open up a ton for water issues. So
And MS4 may come back
Yeah.
up.
well, we would never, ever, I would hope, consider something like this without ARPA funds or some other funds being able to cover a 50% match, to your point.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, from an application standpoint, if we can apply the ARPA, I don't think that's a problem shifting that.
Right.
Yeah.
You would just have to do it in smaller phases, a project this size.
Yeah, and I would just, so I would be in favor of applying. I think when and if we got it, then that's anyway, yeah, we should be able to apply. for
no,
it.
so like, we just need to keep considering it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure we have the responsibility with the ARPA funds to use it in the best way for the entire township. And that's just something that we all need to keep in mind, but there's no harm in applying. It's definitely an area that could use some attention. And so we'll just have to see what we can get.
And in relation to MS4, I know we've made recent progress at Gooley. I believe we're in the process of making progress at Sapovitz, and the Houston Park project is also going to be a big bite of the MS4 apple as well. I actually don't have a good idea, like quantitatively, numerically, how many additional much additional MS4 work we need to do after the Houston project. I don't know kind of what the scope of the required additional work will be.
There's still work to be done. I mean, but I just think that it's a really good point, Kate, that you also bring up around doing things that benefit the whole. But a lot of these are, I mean, even with the MS4 stuff, it is in specific areas, so. This is a tough one for sure. I just think if the motion is to approve applying for it, I think we should just go for that.
And there's no guarantee we're gonna get the whole.
There's no guarantee you're gonna get it. And if we get it, then we can make some hard decisions if we needed to at that point, but
No, I agree. All right, so Robert, you want to go ahead with that?
I'm sorry.
Marty, to your question, Charles found it March 1st, 2026.
You want to make a motion to apply for that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we apply for the H2O grant. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? And if not, all in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And looks like the motion carries unanimously 6-0. Thank you very much. Last item I have here is the motion to approve the Pennsylvania Small Water and Sewer Grant. There's a 15% match, which covers projects up to $500,000. The 2 Palmer's Lane phases are estimated to cost about $416,000. So about 15% of that would be about $62,000, leaving about $350,000 for the township. I also have 2 resolutions here. I don't know if you'd like me to read these now, Kate.
So wait, do we need to make a separate motion for the small water and grant and sewer?
Yeah, these are 2 separate grants. They're technically motions to approve the resolutions. So the
Why don't I
H2O
read? Why don't I
And
read?
just so we're making the distinction here, these are 15% match, which
This
is
is 50.
much more what we're.
Right, that's what we're typically.
Yeah, and these are, I think this was mentioned earlier, but these are good grants, but they don't come out every year like some of the other grant opportunities that we come across.
These were built into the spreadsheet we just saw though, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something additional beyond that. Okay.
Yes.
The match portion is what is shown as, our match is gonna come out of the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Which actually the ARPA funding that the state has is where the grant funding is coming from.
So it's ARPA match.
So
and
it's
ARPA.
all, yeah, right. It's ARPA
And
match. and ARPA.
also for the small water project, we've also gotten some funding from the state already. So it's also the state funding is the match for some additional state funding. So there's a lot of kind of match games going on here. Matchmaking going on. Yeah, absolutely. And to all of your point, the reason it's well taken that this 50% match is not a great match compared to other grants that we've historically taken, but given how rarely the opportunity for these grants to even be applied for has come across, we felt like it makes sense. So that point's well made.
Yes,
Yeah,
no, I'm
exactly.
Trying.
Okay. Would you like me to read the resolutions, I guess? Okay. Should I read the resolution first? I would assume. Yeah, okay. So be it resolved, the Township of Nether Providence, Delaware County hereby requests a small water and sewer program grant of $427,750 from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for Palmer's Lane flooding improvements. Be it further resolved that the applicant does hereby designate Dave Grady, Township Manager, and President Caitlin McKenzie as officials to execute all documents and agreements between the Township of Nether Providence and the Commonwealth Financing Authority to facilitate and assist in obtaining the requested grant. Dave Grady, our township manager, duly qualified from Nether Providence Township, Delaware County, Wallingford, Pennsylvania, hereby certifies the foregoing is true and correct. So that's the first resolution. The second resolution is be it resolved, the Township of Nether Providence from Delaware County, Pennsylvania, hereby requests an H2O PA grant of $324,625,000 from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for Henry Lane drainage. Be it further resolved that the applicant does hereby designate our township manager, David Grady, and our board president, Caitlin McKenzie, as the officials to execute all documents and agreements between the Township of Nether Providence and the Commonwealth Financing Authority to facilitate and assist in obtaining the requested grant. And Dave Grady, again, as our township manager, hereby certifies that the foregoing is true and correct. I would move that we authorize the approval of these two resolutions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? And hearing none, all in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? And with that said, looks like the motion carries unanimously 6-0. That would conclude my report. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam President.
Thanks, Robert. All right, on to Parks and Open Space with Commissioner Gars.
Thank you, President McKenzie. First item on my agenda is the Leaper House tree removal. The township had its arborist review the site, and several trees, unfortunately, were identified as needing removal within the next 2 months. An initial quote was for $30,500, but the township contacted Pico about one of the oak trees within wires, and Pico's agreed to remove that tree, which should hopefully reduce the overall price. The township, however, expects the price to exceed the bid thresholds. Before I do a motion here, have we checked to see if any of the land around the Leaper House where these trees are located, if any of that land's owned by PennDOT?
I
Probably
consulted
not.
with our public works director and he felt it was,
Sadly, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
we were able to, getting one of the trees to get removed by Pico is
Yeah.
good. That should save us some money. We don't know how much that will save yet, but
Do we know why this is such an issue? Is there like a disease there, or no one's really looked at these trees in a while?
several of them, I believe, are the ash trees, which have been impacted by the emerald ash borer. And one is an oak tree. I'm terrible with trees. I can tell you a tree's a tree.
No, I just
that's
didn't know
about
if there
it.
was really a story here. It sounds
Yeah.
like just.
On the other hand, is there any wood we can cut down and sell and recover?
To the point of recovering, wood, I mean, we've done a lot of work there. Is there any need for wood chips?
Yes, at,
Still gotta take the trees down,
Barnett.
yeah, right.
Has the township ever had the arborist look at sort of a township survey of where we are with trees? Because I know, trees talk to each other, they support each other. It's an amazing ecosystem. And at least in a couple of areas, there's a lot of problems, not only with the ash, but also some diseases happening with oaks. Have we ever had anyone do anything like that before?
No, not an extensive study. Are you talking just township wide or on township properties?
Township wide. Yeah,
No.
township properties would be a good start, but I think it'd be interesting because if there's something that could be done, you have tree removal places that come into the township and they are just chop and chip, right? Like just get it down, I don't care. And they're not really arborists, and you have arborists who are caring for the trees. And residents don't necessarily know the difference between them. I don't necessarily know the difference. I trust my arborist. But I just think it'd be something that we could consider in 2023 and beyond, of if there's a way to help residents with evaluating what's going on with our trees because I think like a lot of people, came to this community in part because these trees are special. So just a thought.
No, you're right, we've lost a lot of tree cover driving around, you can tell.
We are applying to be a tree city,
That's true.
so
Yeah.
we could see what resources might be available as we become a tree city. I would think that if you wanted to do something like that, you probably would want to budget for it, because I think it'd be very expensive to do that assessment. Just to give you a sense, just him being on the Leaper House property for a little while, really looking at just 5 trees, I think was about $300.
You're kind of talking about a comprehensive evaluation of the kind of tree cover in the community. It seems like the kind of thing that would make sense to be a house in the comprehensive plan, which is something we're currently evaluating.
Yeah.
So maybe we can kind of further that conversation and see if it makes, sense. I have no idea how much it would cost. So that would obviously have to be part of the calculus, but we can maybe continue that at our next comp meeting.
All right, I think we need to do a motion. I will move to have the township go out to bid for tree removal at the Leaper House property.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Then I'd like to add something to the agenda as well. So I'm gonna move to add a discussion of the Gooley Field to this evening's agenda.
Second.
Any comments?
If you can just state for the minutes why it is you need to add it, that's part of what you have to do.
Sure. We had a meeting actually today with some representatives of the Swarthmore Recreation Association, and we discussed the possibility of adding turf to, the field at Cooley. I want to discuss that with the board. Very excited to do that.
Go ahead.
All right.
vote.
Do we get a second?
Yes.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That's 6-0.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so, everybody remembers a couple weeks ago during budget presentations, we had a representative from SRA come out here, to make a presentation, and during that discussion, we learned that there might be, a source of funding available. So, what was it, Dave? When did we meet with them here? 2 weeks ago, a week ago? We had 2 meetings. It was last Thursday, and then we met with them again today. And SRA is very, very interested in contributing money to towards a turf field at Cooley. This would kind of encompass the site where the former school building was. And we discussed three ways you could create a field there: turf, sod, or seed with dirt. I think everybody's in favor of, at least those who met so far. A turf field would be multi-purpose. It could be out there, you know, as long as there isn't snow on the ground, the kids could be out there. Could be for soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, ultimate frisbee. You could have a marching band out there. You could really do it all.
Sorry,
Yeah.
as someone who doesn't understand the difference between all these things, what do you mean by a turf field? Are you talking about grass or astroturf?
Don't worry about it. Just turf is what we want.
Yeah.
I don't wanna use
Just
the
for the
word-
record.
I don't want to use the
wanna
phrase
under-
astroturf because
No.
it's come a long way. You know, but turf, they,
Okay. So it's an
Not grass, not
artificial,
grass,
it's an
but
artificial
artificial.
substance. Okay, understood.
right. So, you know, we kicked some numbers around. The township has approximately $170,000 available to it from the balance of the RACP program. So that was money that we were already going to earmark for projects at Summit.
It has to be used.
Has to be used there, can't use it anywhere else. Swarthmore Rec they were talking potentially putting up 200,000 to 300,000 towards turf. We had Charles get an estimate for a turf field, which we received today, and the estimate was about 347,000. So I'm confident that, you know, combining RACP money from the township and money from SRA, we could create a multi-purpose field there. Now, the way we left things with the SRA folks today is they'd kind of like to see a menu of options. It may be that they put potentially, and their board has to discuss it, but more towards the turf field. And the township still contributes towards turf, but maybe we use the balance of some of our funds to create a structure with restrooms, a concession stand, and storage. And then you really have a multi-purpose athletic facility I think could really be phenomenal with the playground there that we have already. So wanted to discuss this with the board, and then I have some other ideas, but open it to
I mean, the
them.
timing is really like uncanny. Matt and I have been continually talking about what to do to improve Summit and just to sort of make that field playable. Because it has a lot of, you know, it's just sort of dirt and grass right now that was left over from the construction is really, you have to be careful. There's ruts and things. You know, we were talking about a minimal amount to try to do that, but this is just amazing at the right time.
Timing, and we also walked the upper field, which NPAA soccer used to use. My understanding is they don't use that field anymore. SRA isn't interested in making some improvements to that field as well. We have to talk to Charles. There may be some brush that we can remove to expand the field. I don't know if you start encroaching on some wetland area. We have to find out about that. And then the field's uneven in spots, but I think that's an easy fix over there.
But we
So
have a public works that's good at leveling.
We have a
things, so
public works
it doesn't
good.
matter. I'm trying to figure out the downside here, and I can only, as I'm working hard because this sounds fantastic, and great job, Commissioner Garson. But the two things that come to mind that I'm not sure of. One is this is SRA and it's not MPAA.
Right.
And so there might be some turf wars with that. And then the other, and so there might need to be some agreements that are created. That's all. you know.
We've already gone down that road a bit, and if the board wants to continue pursuing this, which I strongly urge the board to do, we would probably have Solicitor Scott start to put some outlines of an agreement with
Mhm.
SRA. We made it very clear that, you know, they would have first dibs on the field as they
Sure.
need it, but when they aren't using the field.
That's awful.
I think my voice was coming.
Yeah.
Disembodied.
No, I think that makes sense.
So it's a public recreation
Yep.
facility other times. And yes, we discussed the possibility of, we'll call it, if you have a great turf field there, some other organization coming and saying, we'd like to use it. Sure. Other organizations already have their facilities. This is, and no other organization has come to us.
Listen, my kids are
money.
at MSI over in Aston right now, both of them, and that's a very expensive turf field to use. So I think there would be other organizations coming.
And I was very impressed with SRA's commitment to local recreation. This isn't totally geared for the all-star kid. This
Yeah.
is everybody.
Yeah, that's great. And then the second kind of thing that I just wonder if you've talked about is upkeep and maintenance.
So we started to get into that as well. And actually Dave and I were kicking around that earlier today. And I think because this is going to be, it's still a township facility, we're going to insure it. I think the township would have to have some kind of contribution towards maintenance. Charles could probably speak to what level of upkeep a turf field takes. I mean, you're not cutting it.
It's not the same.
You're not fertilizing it. You're not even really striping it.
But the high school field
Sure.
is a mess.
Yep.
And it's in part a mess because they have not kept it up the way that they ought
And-
to have.
SRA has, because they have money coming in, they have the ability to set aside money each year to go towards maintenance. That, I think that would have to be
It's a great
in
point.
an agreement as well.
My entire question is I have no idea the maintenance required for turf fields. I know how to plant seed and like mow, but I have no idea what goes into turf. I would just want clarification on that, but I think structurally having it in the agreement such that another organization helps us with maintenance is a fantastic idea. I'm in agreement with all of these points. My remaining question that I had is I'm trying to get like a bird's eye view of the entire kind of space, and I'm trying to figure out how much ground cover this, turf field would take, and if there's any additional room at the site for like further improvements, or if this is like done with the development of Summit School at this point.
I think you could add some other little nips and tucks here and there.
There's
but-
really the upper
yeah,
field and lower
yeah.
field and then some other random.
Right.
And so this is the lower field that we're talking about.
This is the footprint of where the school used to be. It's kind of in between the playground and the parking area where the flagpole is, stretching to where the slope begins.
I've heard from a number of people in the township, and I share their desires to add to the kind of athletic infrastructure in the area. I just want to give voice to some other people who they're not anti-athletic field, but they just had some other things that they were hoping to, potentially be seen at Gooley, which is a multi-use kind of like indoor club space. So building buildings that people can like have meetings at, probably more expensive, I would imagine, than building athletic fields. I guess I'm just curious, is there geographically any space left over at Gooley after this park is
We had a
made for some sort of indoor
subcommittee
park?
delve way into
Yeah.
that. And the reality is the people that want that are frustrated with costs at other facilities, but we would have the same cost because we would have insurance and we'd have maintenance of the
Staff.
building and
Yeah.
staff. And so there is not really lack of space. It's a lack of space that people feel is affordable. And unfortunately, when you delve into it, they're really not paying that much and we would not really be able to offer it for less if we built anything.
But I do think that the first organization not on the floor, if we were to do this, would be the district. And you could perhaps create some reciprocity. Try to say, listen, if you can have use, if you could allow. us
Sure. There's a lot of things that you could say, give us some money towards upkeep.
Yep. So there's a lot.
Yep.
There's just nothing, but I can't think of a real strong.
Yeah, so I guess my question for the board would be, in terms of using our RACP funds, would commissioners really care? Are we going all in with the RACP money to put it towards turf? Or do we want to kind of see what SRA wants to put towards turf? We're gonna have to put something towards it and then put the balance. I'd like to see a structure with restrooms there. We could always go for a grant down the line, but if you could do it now, just so we can give them that menu of options.
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
You could authorize the use of the RACP funds, and we of course would want approval of whatever ultimately is going to be there, but that you and Dave and others who are involved in this could, negotiate knowing that you could use the balance of the RACP
Right.
funds.
Yeah, so then my next recommendation would be Dave and I can work on this probably. SRA was meeting on December 15. So we would write up, kind of that menu of options. Maybe Bob, you could give me some bullet points. of
Yeah, I
what would
think
go in the
a
agreement?
term sheet or a term sheet would be a
It
good
doesn't have to
place to
be-
start. Yeah, which is 1 or 2 pages of bullet points outlining general concepts.
We also talked, they would probably, the township would take lead on coordinating the construction. They'd be making donation to the township, then we'd take funds and pay the project.
So the things we had talked about before for that site were improving that lower field and a walking
Okay.
path around, but the park is not that big and it doesn't really seem like that walking path had a lot of excitement. The one thing that I've been sort of talking about, I've been grooving on the last couple of weeks and months, is the connection back to Locust Lane. There's a fence back there and I actually think there's some parts of it that are probably dangerous. And so we got a quote to totally redo it and it's really expensive. So I don't think that makes sense right now. But Dave, can you just talk to Gerald as that park gets used more and more? I just want to make sure that they are paying attention to that path and making it safe and that part of the fence that was falling down or whatever, like we're cleaning it up as best we can without completely redoing it at this point. I think that's something we need to keep on our radar. As people keep using that park. All right, so we're good. All right, Matt, are we good?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay.
That's the end of my report. I'm excited. about it. Public safety.
All right, so we will move on to Finance and Administration Committee report. I think we'll probably start towards the bottom. One item on the agenda with respect to compensation, we're going to talk about in our meeting December 22nd. So we can remove that for now, and then let's take care of the bills list. We will start with the interim bills list on page 1. Continuing on to page 2 is Catania Engineering. A lot of that relates to the low volume road program, Sapovitz and East Rose Valley and Martha Burton Park. Next down is Chester Water Authority, charge for 55 hydrants. Further down on page 2 is Dunlap's. Is that spelled funny? Why do I can't say it today. That's our accounting services. Isn't it just Dunlap? Why is there an L in there? Dunlap's. Oh, okay. It needs to be separated. Okay.
I actually don't know what it's named for then.
Okay, got it. All right, page 3, Lynn Architects, that the design charge for 12,500 relates to the new public works garage, which we were discussing earlier. And then just under 18,000 in building code services, which are compensated by fees that the residents or applicants pay. On page 3, there's a charge for Mike Wikiak garage doors. That's for garage door repair at the Public Works garage. What is the story with that? There was an emergency repair? Or was it not working?
Yeah, it was just I don't know exactly what failed with the garage. It was just one of the garage doors that
I just hate to
needed-
spend money on things that are gonna be trashing, but, or is that on the side that's not gonna be trashed?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Don't
It's
think.
not a ton of money.
Yeah, if it's on the side that is being trashed and they would still need to fix it because until then we need to
No, I
repair
agree.
cars. So
I hear you. All right, and then further down on page 4, traffic planning and design, that's East Rose Valley to Coppell's, sidewalk design. And actually, I saw there were contractors working on East Rose Valley. Are those traffic signals finally going in? Is that what's happening there? All right, and so then is that's gonna be finished pretty soon? Okay, that's really exciting, because that was the last piece of that East Rose Valley. It kind of looked like a mess on Providence, but we were waiting on parts there. All right, on to the AP bills list. The CDL Direct Online on page 2. Those are 2 public works CDL courses. I understand our part-timer, and I guess one other guy are taking courses. He will become certified, which is great, and we'll have all of our, oh, I see, Ryan Smith and Nick Navarro and the two. Further down on page 2 is Charles Higgins. Those were the cameras from Sapovitz. We retrieved them. Those were reviewed. We have to pay money each time they're reviewed. Has that happened?
They had the full video when that shooting occurred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Gotcha. And then they put them back up. Is that what happens?
They need the bucket truck in order to do that. and
Okay.
We don't have the bucket truck.
Seems like that should like send the video somewhere.
Daryl is watching the meeting. He clarified for the garage door. He said it would not open. So it sounds like it is on the side that is being trashed, but he said if they couldn't open it, they could repair it in the
Yeah.
car. So
No, I mean, it wasn't a big charge.
The camera, as far as I recall, is a game camera, so you kind of set it there and you start manually through like the disc. It's not like there's a wireless connection.
nobody's actively, watching unless there's an incident.
We need to get a Ring camera there where you can like log on your phone, rewind the history. All right, I lost my place. General code publishers, that's our code retrieval, enhanced support. What is that? Just to have our code online? Our ordinances? Okay.
Was updating recent ordinances and they also redid all of our books because they used to be in a smaller format and the old style, and now it's become into a larger format. So we were one of their last clients out of like several thousand that held off on
They
that.
got it
So
done?
We
Okay.
finally gave in.
So we're modern now, but we
Mhm.
still have discs in our cameras. It's happening. We're working on it. We're getting there.
It's on the floppy disk.
All right, go to on page 4, computer monitoring software. That's so IT matters. And I know that we have been spending a little bit of money on that to make sure that we're secure with, all the data and things we're managing. So those things are important. Further down on page 4, J&K shredding. That's a shredding event that was held at the end of October. And we split that charge with Swarthmore Media. On page 7. Middle of page 7, there's a charge for United Concordia. That's the police department dental. Further down on that page is Walmart charge. We're just now getting charged for the conference room chairs.
We just got them maybe 2 weeks ago.
Oh, the downstairs. I'm thinking of this.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
wow,
yeah, the ones
that was a
downstairs.
good like
Yeah.
6 months ago. Yes, all right. All right, so those are the new chairs for the conference room downstairs, which were probably also from 1952. And on the last page of the AP bills list, page 8, Weaver mulch, that is all the mulch for a Glee playground. And then lastly, we will look at the AP bills list. So these are bills still yet to be paid. B&D disposal, our normal monthly fee up at the top. Catania Engineering, lot charges related to several grant projects, Sapovitz, the low volume road program, East Rose Valley, and Martha Burton Park. As we've been talking about tonight, we have a lot going on. It's really exciting. And page 2, Divot, it's oh no, first, not Divot. Delaware Valley Property and Liability Trust, a deductible for a lawsuit. Page 3, Pico charges. So those are for the township building, public works garage, traffic and streetlights. Further down on that page is charge for our solicitor Scott. And then on the last page, page 4, is Rockwell, the arborist, and see Marty, it's right there, our charge for the arborist. For one property, you can extrapolate that to our township. And finally, Stantec Consulting, that's sidewalk enhancements on Providence Road. Those are the right-of-way acquisition services. Dave, do we have an update on how that is going? Okay, let's maybe think about, well, in January, let's think about getting an update from them. All right, so that is it for the bills. So I will make a motion to approve the AP interim bills list in the total of $54,825.54. The AP bills list in the amount of $47,559.33. And the AP bills list in the amount of $81,332.54. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And then Steve, can you give us a quick update on the earned income tax study info?
Yes, just one moment here. So at the board's request, we reached out to Keystone Collections, who is a collections agency that collects earned income tax. They did a no charge study for the township. They noted that 22 other municipalities in Delaware County have an earned income tax. And they estimated that the impact could be just over $5 million if a 1% EIT were implemented. However, they note the figures represent only those communities with a non-resident or commuter EIT, where Keystone is the tax collections officer. So that's the counties in the area but that excludes Montgomery County. They noted that at least or upwards of $1 million would come back to the township for people that are already paying an earned income tax. So basically, like if you work in Media Borough and you pay an earned income tax there, it would then come back to another providence. It gets returned to wherever you live, not where you work, with the exception of Philadelphia and Delaware, in which case they would keep it. But if you're somebody that is already paying an earned income tax, this would not be a tax on top of that. It would just be moving your money, you're just bringing the money back home. I believe, and I think I mentioned last time the board had considered doing this several years ago. The thought was to reduce the property taxes to offset that earned income. So this isn't, it's not completely being added on top of the real estate property taxes. It would be something that would be meant to reduce the real estate property taxes. And so we had asked some questions for them regarding, they had any history about impacts to the community and things like that, because the thought is with an EIT, it might be able to keep people on fixed incomes or senior citizens in their homes instead of moving out quickly. So, and again, this was just a study. It's a no obligation thing. It's something that would not be possible to put in place in 2023. It would have to be something that would be put in place in future years.
That I was just curious about was, do we know what percentage of the folks in the township it would be a new tax for?
Yeah, that's one of the things that Keystone has said that's difficult to
calculate.
determine. I did ask them a follow-up question on that. I did some work myself based on what percentage of Delaware County residents are paying an earned income tax, and I was trying to see if I could figure out, what this would be
Like even just a ballpark kind of like or something, right?
Yeah. It was not, I would not say this is a strong figure, but I think it would be for about 40% of the population. This would not be a new tax. Would not.
So
Yeah.
60%.
So about 60 would be.
That's kind of where we were a number of years ago, isn't it?
I think that
It's
I think so.
relatively, yeah.
But again, I've asked Keystone to see if they can try and dive into that a bit more. They were kind of, I gave them my math and they said that they wanted to review it. They thought it might be sound, but
with the number of people that are now working from home, it's a significant number than when the board, I think, looked at this previously, that are now working from home. or a significant portion of their time from home, even if they're doing some kind of hybrid. I think that that changes a little bit from when the board looked at this previously. So I think, to me, right now, we have one mechanism for raising funds, and it's property. That's really our only thing. We don't have, and the only way that we can manage our budgets, the only levers that we have to pull at our discretion is you can either raise revenue. Well, it'd be nice to have different sources of where that revenue and where those levers could come from, or cut expenses. And I don't see us with the problems that we have on our roads, the funded organizations, the, fire, police, all the things that are going to be continuing to hit our bottom line on a regular basis. It may come times when we have to be really belt tightening, but it would be really nice to be able to add some variety of revenue, and in a way where people don't have to have just their property be the only thing that hits them, especially for some of our older folks who might be on a fixed income.
The points that you make, Marty, I think are sound, and I share a lot of those interests. For me, I think the thing that's most interesting potentially is it would create an incentive for people to stay in their homes beyond when their children are going to school here. It seems like there's a lot of turnover in our town because, they can say, well, it makes sense to live in this expensive kind of tax community because we're getting these fantastic schools. And if you go to some component of our taxation scheme being a earned income tax, then, it would incentivize people who aren't earning money, but who have property, like retired folks. In kind of further conversations with Dave, the kind of major concern that I have is the kind of fragility it adds to our taxation system. If we think about the kind of financial moment that we just came through over the last few years with kind of concerns about unemployment related to COVID, and 10 plus years ago when Lehman collapsed and there was a recession and there was unemployment, and 10 plus years before that with the dot-com bubble burst. My concern is that property tax revenue is very predictable, and that if we have a certain amount of our tax base be based on when people are earning money, if 10 years from now, some economic calamity besets and, we set our tax rate in December and then the calamity happens in March, and now half of, our anticipated tax revenue is all of a sudden drastically altered. What does that do to kind of our operations?
We cut things.
Yeah. So that's my concern, is it kind of adds an element of fragility to our taxation kind of process.
I think that with the percentages that we're talking about here, though, we're not putting ourselves in exposure in the same way. And over those same course of time that you're just talking about, you have, incomes that are really steadily rising, right? So yeah, there are these moments, and we remember these moments where there was like, wow, bang, that was rough. But even look at where we were with COVID, and I don't think our community was hit nearly as hard as most. But if you look at the COVID numbers, we're still at record unemployment numbers, and about where we were in 2019 pre-pandemic.
Do you have information from the communities in Delaware County that do have an earned income tax? What they experienced from a taxation perspective over the last few years, and I know we briefly talked about it, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have any.
Well, go ahead, but I have some observations as well.
Yeah, I know he works in some communities that have earned income tax. I've only anecdotally heard from people that.
The municipalities that I represent that have earned income taxes rarely ever have to raise taxes again, because of that self-rising nature of wages results in a increase in revenue every year when people get their annual raise from their employer. It's not entirely, for instance, Media Borough is going to raise their real estate taxes a little bit this year. But part of what Media is experiencing is that other municipalities, as they enact one, people who work in media, that revenue starts to get taken away from them. And if you do that, you'll be taking revenue that your residents pay to media and bringing it home. One of the obstacles to an EIT is understand I think the way you want to do it is to offset real estate taxes. But the first year you enact it, you collect EIT on a quarterly basis. So that first year, you're only going to get 3 quarters. So say you enact this the end of 2023, 2024, you'll only get 75% of your collectibles in that
In
year.
that first year.
You can cut real estate taxes, but it's a kind of a guessing game. You're not going to know for a solid year and a half exactly how much to bank on, which means you've got to kind of give that real estate tax cut in stages. You can figure out to a degree what it's going to be, but you really need a year, nearly a year and a half, 2 years experience to really know what your number's going to be.
And it can really be impacted if, say, Trey Turner moves into the township and then moves out.
Then, yeah. What's the component with the school district though? Because I mean, we can talk taxes all we want, we can talk property taxes all we want, but the school district obviously is the behemoth here. If we enact this, does the school district have to consider this in some way?
I believe the school district has the ability to take half of an EIT. I can't recall if they can do that just by their own vote at the school board, or if they have to do it by referendum.
I believe it's by referendum.
So once it's in place, I don't know that it takes money, it would force you back into having to raise real estate taxes again. It would allow them to cut it. It's kind of neutral. I don't know. I'm not seeing that happen, but it could happen.
Well, and
Or-
considering the school district, unfortunately, people are gonna continue to see their property tax bills rise anyway, because the school district is a county and we're only 10% of their bill. So while we could say we're not increasing property taxes, I think the concern might be that they see their bill rising and that they're seeing.
I think that's a fair concern. I just, if they did enact it though, and did decide that they wanted to mirror what we're doing, and appreciate the lead that does, so that they could also offset some of those property taxes, then it becomes an incredibly attractive sort of proposition.
That's a somewhat small percentage of their budget though, right? Because they'd only take 0.5%.
Yeah. So if we made 5 million from it, they'd get 2.5 million. And what's their budget? 60 or 70 million dollars
Yeah.
or something. So
Cut real, it's gonna be the same amount of revenue coming in to the township and the school district, or just the township, which will allow for that equal amount of real estate tax abatement. It doesn't really matter which one does it.
I still like the idea of having multiple mechanisms for future boards. I think there's a lot of power with that. To be able to have just another lever that you can manipulate to make sure that we're able to do what's in the best interest of everybody. Right now, I feel like we only have a cudgel. I'd like to have another tool in our toolbox.
can I ask a question? But Marty, you were saying earlier about people working at home, and what I just don't understand about that is like, are you talking about like someone who, I don't know, worked wherever,
Mhm.
and now they've left that job wherever and they're working just out of their house? Or are you talking about someone who still could go like once a week or once a month to their office in Malvern or King of Prussia or wherever, but they're working at home? Like,
Right.
because
So
like
if,
you'd have to be at home and because I would think if you're
so to me, I mean, if my office was headquartered in Malvern,
right,
and we were always going in the office, since March of 2020, now I work exclusively from home.
but your company, but your office is out of where?
Well,
Wherever it's out of.
right now it's out of Philadelphia, so it doesn't count because Philadelphia is one of those that they get it. But I think, but people in my similar situation,
Well, I guess
or all the lawyers who were in media, who had offices in media and now are working out of their homes.
Well, so like, let's say I have my office in media, but I work at my house, but I still pay my EIT to media because my office is still in media. That's my business address. That's where I'm.
Well, except your payroll would say, where are you working the majority of the time? And they should be taking out a certain amount to pay to, well, if we had one here, the problem is you don't have to worry about it now.
So in that, this would come through payroll. That's where these are created or, collected.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so interesting stuff to consider. I think maybe we'll move on because we need to adopt the budget tonight. All right, Dave, you want to put up the budget info?
All right.
So this folded paper, this is old.
Yes, you can disregard that. Okay, so just run through a little presentation here on the 2023 budget. This is a pie chart showing our projected 2023 revenues. As you're obviously aware from the discussion we just had, a large portion of that is from real estate taxes, which is about 67%. The Act 511 taxes is another sizable part of the revenues. Those Act 511 taxes being the real estate transfer taxes, the local services tax, and the per capita tax. With some permits, grants, shared entitlement, public safety, general government, a large portion of which is the recycling fee that we receive, culture and recreation, which is the summer camp, the reimbursement that we receive from the sewer fund, and then just miscellaneous revenues. So as I know, the real estate taxes are 67% of the general fund budget. The Act 511 taxes are 7% of the revenues. The cable franchise fees, we actually reduced this year. We decreased it by $15,000. So this is the fee that Comcast and Verizon pay the township for the use of the right of way under the streets for their lines. We share a fee percentage of their revenues that they receive in the township. And because that is related to cable, it does not include internet. That's why it has been trending downward over the years, and we expect it to continue trending downward. So as such, we've decided to do that this year. The state aid, we've budgeted an increase of $10,000. This is based, we saw an increase this year in the state aid that we received, which was due to the population increase from the 2020 census, population being a big factor in the calculation of the state pension aid. Very similar situation with the Fire Relief Association funding. This is something that is a pass-through. We have actually increased it slightly based on that, and that is something that goes right to the fire company. So I actually realize that's an outdated note there. We aren't holding a study. We did actually increase that, but it does have the offsetting expense. So it's just an in and out for the township. The recycling fee revenue estimated to be $410,000. This is an increase of 18.6%. This is all due to the cost of the recycling collection from the recent BNL bid for the recycling collection, and then the cost of the recycling disposal. The Republic costs have gone, I mean, the recycling market has just been haywire the past couple of years, being over $95 in 2010, dropping down into the low 30s and 40s in 2021. And then unfortunately sharply increasing again in 2022. So we've been as low as $30 a ton early in the year, up to just recently a little over $110 a ton. We really don't have any reason to see it going down in the near future. So we have built in that assumption into the rates. So we're looking at a recycling fee revenue increase of about 18% related to that. Permit revenues, we're holding steady from 2022. During 2022, we are exceeding the budgeted numbers, which has been good, but we expect permits to slow in 2023, especially as interest rates are rising and people are doing less work on their properties. Additionally, the development on Wallingford Avenue is nearing completion, so that was a portion of the permitting. We also receive a transfer from the sewer fund. These are funds that are meant to reimburse the general fund for expenses related to managing the sewer system. So for example, our public works employees and insurance and vehicles, that's all paid out of the general fund. Because, these are normal township expenses. So those costs are built into the sewer fee, but that does get transferred to the general fund. So that was a revenue, again, a revenue meant to reimburse the general fund. As far as expenses, this is just a pie chart. I'll go through some of the highlights shortly. Public safety being just about half of the budget. Codes and inspections, small 3%, recycling and waste. Public Works Highway, which is largely the salaries and benefits for the employees. Recreation Parks 3%, debt service 6%, which is very much in line with standard recommendations, and we're actually doing pretty well with that. Insurance is 5%, general government costs being 12%, related to our non-union administrative employees. Expenses, we've seen salary increases for the non-union employees of 4%. The police salary increases will be 3.75% in line with their contract. And then the Public Works is looking to be a 5% increase based on the recent tentative proposal that we have with the Public Works Department. Health insurance costs, we've seen no increase for the police, which is good. We did see some increase in the health insurance for the Public Works and administrative healthcare, but that has been offset by some changes in the plan membership. As I mentioned, the police union salaries, they're going up 3.75%. This equates to a $105,604 increase, as well as the FICA, the federal income taxes associated with that. We're projecting Public Works salary increases of $12,000. And then we've also added increases in the overtime. Give me one moment here. Someone has stolen my charger, and I'm in dire need of it.
Charger?
Anyway. No, I was just looking to see if you happen to. No, yeah, it's something different. I just wanted to hear. Where? Here it is. Where are we gonna lose? Sorry, when other people are up here, it throws everything off. All right. Sorry about that. Road resurfacing costs, we're looking at a $30,000 increase. This is reflected not necessarily as road resurfacing in the general fund, but we'll see more costs in the liquid fuels fund related to the road resurfacing. The operating supplies from the liquid fuels fund are being moved to the general fund to sort of offset that, which will make things a lot more administratively easy as we're doing the liquid fuels report each year. Our debt costs have declined about $60,000, largely due to the repayment of the 2020 grant loan. Liabilities and workers' comp insurance has increased by 66% or $66,000, which is an 18% increase. For the grant work, we are doing a transfer of about $160,000 to the grant fund to cover the portions of the matches that are needed for the various projects, including $50,000 for the transportation alternatives set aside grant for the sidewalk on Providence Road, about $50,000 for the remainder of the East Rose Valley sidewalk project, $20,000 for the Gooley DCNR project, and the related engineering fees for the RACP program that were discussed earlier, and then $40,000 for the two Houston Park projects, the one being the stream bank restoration, and the other being the trail. The pension contribution to the police pension has gone up by $65,000. This is the minimum municipal obligation, which is something that we are required by state law to contribute to based on the actuary's determination of what that MMO is going to be. Sewage disposal fees, we've seen an increase. CDCA is about 5%, and Delcor is 3%. Because the sewage disposal goes to both of them. The net increase for the township is about 3.43%. to $664. So in summary, it's looking like the tax increase is going to be 4.36%. That actually should say millage. The tax millage is going to be 3.3562. So again, this is a 4.36% increase. So on the average assessed value of $332,000, this would be a $50 a year increase. On a $200,000 assessed value property, it would be an increase of $30. And on an $800,000 assessed value, it would be an increase of $120. And again, these main drivers are the police salary increases, the police pension contribution increases, the insurance policy cost, the road resurfacing, and some of the grant work. And again, the main revenue source for the township is the real estate taxes at 67%. And because they're based on the assessments do not change much. This year, the township's assessment went up 0.12%. So it went from 1.653 billion to 1.655 billion. So, which is not much, just brings in a couple extra dollars at the current real estate tax level. So that is the challenge that the board has to struggle with, is the, as I think Marty was noting earlier, with the assessments and the real estate taxes being the primary source, with these increased costs that you see year over year, it does tend to require a tax increase, and this is sort of in line with what we've seen in past years.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. All super helpful summary. I know in the last couple of weeks, we've been really narrowing in on this, and all the major items have been decided. There were a couple lingering items. Some we discussed in executive session related to administrative personnel pays, administrative and otherwise. And then the last couple relate to the yard waste and recycling and some funded organization requests. So it looks like right now in the budget, or the recycling fee as drafted is $99, which is an increase of 19% year over year per household. If we were to accept the bid for that yard waste, it would go up to $145, which would be a 74% increase. I am a little bit loath to rush into that. I've gotten sort of mixed reviews on that, just because we are increasing the recycling fee so much otherwise. I would like to skip that this year, but opening up to other thoughts on that.
No, I agree. And I think, we did form a waste management committee. This is one of the issues that the committee should look into over the next year. And if the data bears out that residents want this service, we can come back and bid it again. I think getting the information was good, helpful, but I don't want to move forward with it at this time.
Same for all the reasons. I'd like the committee to review it, and we can potentially consider it next year.
Yeah, I think we just want to make sure that this is something residents really want, because we're going to be spreading the costs amongst everyone. And if this is a small percentage of people, maybe we can rework how the public works yard is set up for them, or other things that resolve this otherwise. So Marty, that's on you. All right. Or your committee to check into. All right. So the funded organizations, the Leaper House, we had been funding them at 6,000 for about 6 years. That has been increased in the budget as drafted to 7,000 for their request. I think very reasonable based on the number of things they need to deal with at the historical building. And the Historical Society went from $470 to $500, a rounder number. Well worth it. So the library, we went back and forth on this a bunch. They asked for a sizable increase. They're funded at $164,000 in the budget, which is $29,000 higher than last year. So we're giving them a $29,000 bump. But it's still $25,000 less than their request. I'm not sure. Their request is very rich. And while they do great work, I think what we're doing is pretty fair. We're meeting more than half of what they've requested. And we had pretty extensive conversations about this. I don't know if anyone wants to reopen that.
I just, I want, wherever we can find ways to help them Pointed out a couple of times, both financially as well as. In the same way that we're asking, Public Works to step up and help the fire companies, I'd love to see if there's things that we can do creatively. I hope that they continue to come back and come to our meetings on a regular basis. I think that's one of the things that we talked about. Because if there are creative ways in which we can help offset some of their funds, they're, I think, probably the crown jewel of our township, and I want to make sure that we're supporting them in all the possible ways that we can. Knowing that we can't meet their entire request, I would love to see it get a little bit closer to what they can do.
And we had asked that at the meeting, whether there were certain expenses or maintenance costs, routine maintenance costs that we could help them with, or maybe team together. And they did provide a response, but I didn't really identify. I'm not sure. I think we could probably do some more work on that and figure out if there are certain things in their operating budget that we could work together with them on. I agree. Yeah, okay. No, I mean, that sounds great, because I know they kept talking about lighting, and it was sort of things like if they're paying a lot of money for installation of certain lights and things like that, those might be things we can help them with. So. Okay. And then the last thing to talk about is Garden City Fire Company. They are currently at 63,000 in the budget. South Media did not request an increase. They're also at 63,000. Garden City asked for an increase to 69,000. I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because we're really trying to foster this discussion between them and Swarthmore and try to figure out sort of some sort of process where the fire companies work together and maintain staffing and their culture, but still sort of bring things current, because having these little silos, I think, doesn't really work as well as it probably did historically. We need to make sure that we are staffing the trucks and spending our money in the best place. And I am a little bit concerned that we don't fully appreciate all of those things right now. But obviously the fire company is vital, and I don't want to shortchange them. But so opening that for discussion for everyone.
I mean, I'm always the one risking Ellen Yarborough's wrath that I think a bigger organization should get a little bit more funding. I'll continue to fall on that sword and say that I think Garden City made a very compelling case to me, but that's.
They also have gotten significant grant funds this year. So yeah, and ARPA funds.
And the truck
Mhm.
that was damaged. And the truck that was damaged. That, I mean, that's not nothing. I mean, that we
was
carried
really
that for a really long time, and that was an unexpected expense. So that should be factored into our decision making there. So I think that's a really good point. I don't begrudge anybody working hard to do the fundraising that they need to do, and Garden City and South Media both done a great job with that. I think our funding should be based on sort of just overall what the need is, but we did pay for a truck for many months this year, the rental of that truck from Newtown.
Well, and I
So-
think, Marty, your point's not lost on
Right.
anybody up here. And I think the concern in the past has been cutting off funding for a smaller firehouse could actually, lead to the result of losing that firehouse, which, we just were not really in a position to move forward with any sort of changes at that point. But I think what I'd really like to
I
do
don't
in the
want to
next
cut them
couple
off,
years.
though. Just to
No,
be
I mean,
clear,
cut-
I'm not saying cut them. I'm saying one is.
But I think what might make sense is to continue our fire committee meetings much more frequently than they had been happening. And to next year in the budget, provide some incentives for moving towards a more comprehensive group. And that probably will necessarily mean, organizations that are providing more resources at different times of the day get funding for doing that. So I think that might accomplish what you're seeking. right?
If you just look at it from a volunteer, like if we equate $1 per volunteer, South Media is getting a lot more. Just something to consider. It just doesn't seem equitable. but I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, and that goes to the idea of having two houses and two sets of trucks. And so they are not sort of all, it's not a one-to-one cost based on the number of volunteers in the house. All right, so it sounds like there's not a lot of appetite to change that this year. And I really hope that we can see some great fire committee meetings over the next year and make sure we're continue to fund the firehouses and provide the service that all of our residents need and expect. All right, so I don't actually have anything else in the budget. I think we're ready to do the resolutions unless anyone else wants to.
I guess the only other question I have is we've had a number of conversations recently about kind of EMS, and I wasn't sure if you wanted to discuss the possibility of that during this budget conversation.
No. No,
Okay.
well, so we had, I think as everybody knows, Max can explain it much better, but I think we have a $30,000 cushion in the budget for the possibility of needing to contribute to the media firehouse for basic and advanced life support in our area. But I think there's a lot of open issues with that. It sounds to me like we had a call the other day, they're not actually demanding that amount for next year, understanding budget issues. And there's a lot to consider with respect to Nether does take up a large portion of their calls, but we haven't yet seen data on who's paying and who's not, because a lot of the calls are going to the nursing home and Plush Mills, which I would think are paying their bills, but I guess to be seen. And the other concern is sort of having the firehouse in the middle where these really could potentially just be charges between a healthcare provider and the patient and really not falling on the township in the middle. And so they are asking for a significant amount of money. I don't know if you want to add to that. I think for this, right now, we've been conservative in the budget for, having a cushion, and there's really not anything concrete to do right now.
No, I think you framed it very well. And I think, ideally it is just between the patient and the clinical team taking care of them. And we would only need to step in if there's like a significant amount of non-payers in our community to make sure there's a continuity of an important service. But in addition to the kind of conversation about media, almost the same conversation was had, and Shana and Dave can talk about this when we were at that First Class Townships Association meeting just like the week before. So this is, larger than just, Nether, Upper Media, and Middletown. This is really something that's being experienced kind of across the county. And, in the conversations, it became apparent that there's some sort of legal obstacle in place from having county just kind of take over as a larger governmental organization, the kind of EMS flow throughout the county. So I guess my question for Solicitor Scott is if you're aware of the kind of legality and case laws at play, because they seem to indicate that county was legally prevented from taking over as a kind of larger government entity.
And I'm sorry, who made that?
Unless everyone got on board. And so I think that's
Right.
what we'd have to, so unless all the municipalities got together and said, we want county run EMS, which Philly has accomplished because it's the county and a city.
Consolidate, yeah.
Right.
So
So
it's,
I'm sorry, who made that argument?
we were sort of told that the
We were
county.
taught-
can't.
we-
County made that argument?
No,
or-
we were told that at the meeting with Media Upper and Middletown, and a similar
Yeah,
conversation was had at the First Class Township Association, I believe, by people who are employed by the county partially. made that argument.
I'm not aware of that, but I have not looked into it. I will try to learn more.
So
I think my understanding of it was that it's the municipality's responsibility for EMS service, and the county couldn't take it over. But when there'd been talks about moving it to the county, I think the county had sort of pushed back and said, well, it's not our responsibility, it's the municipality's responsibility. And what we were hearing at that First Class Township meeting was, then the municipality should all kind of band together and agree that they would like the county to be responsible for it.
That sounds like, I don't believe the county is prohibited from providing. But not something I'm looking at.
the kind of follow-up to that is it seemed possible that the First Class Townships Association was a vehicle to getting communities to kind of band together in a collective way to say, hey, county, can you please do this for us? Or at least generate a letter of interest in exploring that idea. part of that meeting was apparently kind of like a pro forma. Kate is now our representative on their exec committee. Congratulations, Kate. By, because she is our president, she has automatically done that. But, given my expertise in healthcare, if this is a conversation that the board would like to explore further through that avenue, I'd be happy to kind of take your seat on that and kind of, see where the conversation leads with the first class townships and potentially kind of farther to try to stimulate a larger conversation about getting county involved here.
Yeah, I think that, and that's where I'd really like to see the fire discussion go too. I think like countywide, we need to have certain paid drivers or like teams and throughout the county especially during the day. And I think the county should be involved or take the lead on some of that. And doesn't really make sense to sort of have half teams and all these firehouses a couple miles away. So there needs to be more coordination. And so I'd really like to see our money being spent on things like that in the future.
And I agree, we were talking about EMS, but I think EMS and fire and police, for that matter, are extremely related agencies just because they're all of our emergency responders. I'm very happy with the way our police are being run locally, so I don't want county to take them over. But, potentially interested to explore what county could do with the other services.
Yeah, the county really should be spreading the EMS cost amongst all the taxpayers. Makes it more equitable. I think we're being prudent with the cushion we're putting in the budget, but it's not money I really want to have to spend.
Agreed. All right, so we've got 2 resolutions and an ordinance. We'll start with Resolution 2022-26, and this is related to the recycling fee, whereas Nether Providence Township Code establishes fees chargeable by the township. And as the code establishes a schedule of fees authorized by the Board of Commissioners, and the Township Board of Commissioners is permitted to amend the fees as determined to be proper. It is resolved that the annual recycling fee for residential property is established as follows. The recycling fee for 2023 is $99 annually per residence. Can I get do we?
Second.
Yeah, we got a second. Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? That motion carries 6-0. The next is for. This is for the sewer. So the annual sewer fee is for dwellings, churches, schools, professional office buildings, commercial buildings, industrial buildings, nursing homes, and other buildings as defined in the code of the Township of Nether Providence. Whereas the Township Code permits the Board of Commissioners to change and revise at any time by resolution said fee. So the fee shall be as follows. $664 per unit for 2023 based on the following schedule. Each single family dwelling, apartment, school. Do I need to read this part? The unit part. Okay. There's different units that count differently. For the most part, it's each dwelling counts as a unit. But the fee for 2023 will be $664 per unit. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that motion carries 6-0. And then on to the budget itself. So this is ordinance number 845. This is an ordinance, of the Township of Nether Providence, County of Delaware, fixing the rate for the 2023 year at 3.3562 mils on each $1,000 assessed value. The expenditures for the township for 2023 shall be as follows. General government, $971,419.82. Public safety, $3,898,700. I'm going to start that one again. $3,898,774.80 for public safety. For codes and inspections, $247,253.06. Recycling and waste, $422,055.62. Public works and highway, $1,255,934.59. Recreation and parks, $249,013.50. Debt service, $507,932.13. Insurance, $432,064.00. And match grants and miscellaneous, $231,074.00 for a total operating budget of $8,214,981.53. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. And thanks to everyone for a successful budget season. And we're on to a very fast community health and environment report with Commissioner Barnes.
Okay, we have the CDBG grant. I guess, is there any public comment for that? No? Okay. Well, we had discussed two options, continuing with the roads resurfacing in the area. Charles estimated that there are 220,000 worth of roads to be resurfaced, which does not include roads from last year's award. The CDBG program allows for a primary and alternate application. The alternate application could be for the remainder of work at Hepford Park, which would include parking lot improvements, dugouts, improvements to the snack bar, and landscaping for a total cost estimate of $225,850.
I think that makes sense. And we've discussed that a couple times. It doesn't look like there's public comment, but those are things that I think are great for that community.
And we've discussed that this is the only,
Mhm.
there's only one particular neighborhood in the whole township that qualifies for CDBG.
So
So we can make a motion.
Do I make a motion? Okay, so make a motion to adopt the resolution identifying the primary project as road resurfacing and the alternate as Hepford Park. Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Just, do we need the amounts in the motion? Do we need the dollar amounts in the motion? No? Great.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Opposed 6-0. Then we have consideration of lighting ordinance. The township recently received a complaint about the light from a neighbor's spotlight causing glare in the window of the neighbor across the street. While this has not come up before, we realized that there is not anything in the code that would prevent someone from intentionally shining a spotlight into someone's home. Rich Haywood found a good ordinance from Lower Merion that addressed that light pollution. The ordinance could be used as a basis for ours. Are they talking about just like a outdoor light?
I mean,
Okay,
Probably a little of both.
and
right.
well, have you walked past the wonderful and beautiful new daycare?
Yeah.
I do not know how the folks across the street, because those floodlights are really bright and really towards them. Now, I don't know if that's where the complaint came from, but every time we walk towards that, I'm like, how do these people live with these giant floodlights?
There was some vandalism over
There
there.
was.
Oh,
the
I didn't
sign
hear that, really.
got messed up.
We actually, for commercially zoned, there are restrictions on glare.
Okay.
We've actually had to apply it before in other areas. But it was only in the commercial areas. It does not apply for residential.
Got it. So what if the residential is across the street and the commercials?
Well,
Yeah. It'd be
Right.
interesting. I think this
so
is,
we could apply it to, we've not received a complaint about it, but we could if it was excessive. But when it's a case of a residential, if the offender is a potential offender is a residential property, our ability to do something with it would be limited, is very limited. You'd almost have to go through the police and argue that it is some sort of harassment.
Right.
And I think it gets very tricky, and in speaking with our code enforcement officer, he thought it would be very helpful to have something that was very specific,
yeah.
that he could easily use without having to stretch something else and risk a long,
Awesome.
battle with it.
Well, then I would, yeah.
All right, so I think we can.
Yeah.
do a motion on that.
Okay, so make a motion to direct the solicitor and township manager to draft an ordinance that is based off of Lower Merion's for light pollution.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 6-0, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. And there is really nothing on Commissioner.
No zoning hearing board meeting in December.
Yes, thank you for that
I'm done.
extensive report. All right, and the manager's minute.
All right.
That's
I
what we
mean-
used to call it for Gary.
Manager's minute.
So just a reminder about the property tax rent rebate program that is offered through the state. This is something that is benefits eligible Pennsylvanians age 65 and older. You can file at revenue.pa.gov/PTTR, which is property tax rent rebate, the PTTR. So revenue.pa.gov/PTTR. Sorry, I just wanted to share. The next thing on my report is the Pennsylvania Homeowner Assistance Fund. It has, this is something that has been offered during the COVID-19 pandemic. The amount has actually increased up to $14,000 for delinquent property taxes and $10,000 for delinquent utilities per homeowner. Delinquent property taxes, the cap's now 14,000 up from 8,000. Utilities now 10,000 up from 8. And then the maximum assistance has gone up to 50,000 from $30,000. So homeowners are able to apply for this. It's Pennsylvania Homeowners Assistance Fund, PA-HAF, as it's been called. So if that is something you're interested in, you can visit the Pennsylvania Homeowners Assistance Fund website, or feel free to contact us here at the township if you're delinquent on any of these, and we can point you in the right direction to get this assistance from the state. The next is COVID testing availability that is now available through the county health department. This was just recently released. You can get free COVID-19 test kits at the wellness centers in Yaden at 125 Chester Avenue in Yaden, or at the Delaware County Wellness Center in Chester at 151 West 5th Street in Chester. These kits are available, limit 2 per person. And they're doing it, they did one this past Friday, they're doing one tomorrow, and they're doing it on December 16th. No registration is required and parking is free.
My kids are ringing the bell down there. They really had it.
Somebody needs assistance downstairs. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission is seeking assistance and a public participation task force. Give me a moment here while I pull up the flyer. But each community has the opportunity to have a representative. This is an opportunity to represent the community. The public participation task force, I can't talk, provides access to the planning process, hosts a welcoming forum to discuss and learn about timely issues, and assist the commission in implementing public outreach strategies. So if you're interested, you can apply. The deadline is December 26th. Feel free to reach out to the township if you need any assistance or have any questions. Just a note, township elected officials are not eligible. So I know you're all clamoring to get on.
Marty's
this, but,
there a maximum assignment or something?
so elected officials are not eligible, but any other member of the public is. COSA has offered the fall prevention. I guess they do fall prevention in the fall. I don't know if they do that on purpose or not, but yes, I guess so. So they're offering classes and educational. There's one on Tuesday, December 13th and Wednesday, December 14th, from 9 to 11:30. It says PM, but that actually seems very late. Wonder if that's AM, but it says PM. Risk fall assessments they do on Monday, December 12th. You can do that by scheduled appointment. Contact Ellen Williams at the county at williamse@co.delaware.pa.us or call 610-499-1937. It looks like Crozier Health is a partner of that. And then the last thing on my report is to share the good news that we received funding from Delaware County for phase 2 of Furness Park, as this should help complete the extension from the loop that currently exists up to Knoll Road. That grant amount was $249,000, which will supplement the $45,000 that we've already received from the DCED's Greenways and Trails program and the $10,000 from the Pico Greenways program.
Charles, would it make sense to go to bid for that, like in January? Knowing that we might get a
He
better.
needs an
You need
update
some
on what we're
permitting.
talking
For this,
about.
for Furnace, Furnace Trail.
Furness phase 2.
We got more like salamanders.
Hog turtles.
So this is great news and
Yeah.
thanks, Dave, and thanks to the county. And I think we should keep up the pressure on SEPTA to make the change that they need to make there. Especially since we're probably gonna have more residents coming through the area.
We were putting,
I got connected with a locally sourced neighbor of mine who knows Septus Board and reached out to their leadership directly. I wasn't sure if anything came of that.
yeah, and he connected us. We started an email chain, a couple people on SEPTA from it. They forwarded on to somebody else at SEPTA, I think their main engineer. And I reached out and said, let's be happy to talk to you, and haven't heard anything since then. So
All right, so we've got a new reason to
kinda-
contact them, tell them.
yeah, that's been our experience with SEPTA.
All right, so the agenda says the next meeting is December 15th. We will not need that one since we passed the budget tonight, but we will meet briefly on December 22nd. That will be very, very brief. I think mostly to deal with the Public Works union contract. So I believe Dave and I need to be here to have an in-person meeting technically, but if people are off doing things, you can remote in as long as we have a quorum to vote. All right,